All right, so I'm going to add one more file to this because I really wanted a song. And I'm going to scroll down to where you might find that resource. It's kind of buried here. There's a lot of links. 2023 Creative Commons music. I'll probably put a link on the project too so you can find it quickly, but it takes you to this. These are basically curated playlists, places where you can find songs that you can download. Sometimes I add to it. Sometimes things get blocked. Sometimes they're a little bit more complex. Sometimes they're a little bit easier, but eventually you're going to find a song and you're going to download that song. So I'm going to go with just a motivational song, and I'm going to preview I'll just preview something in the middle, dragon level. Alright, I can hear it. I'm not sure you can, but I'm going to go and take that song and download it. And again, showing that discipline, I'm going to make sure that I direct that song to the folder Getting Started Editing because I want that MP3 to be there. So I'm just making sure I take the time to look where it's going. And sure enough, there's the song, the MP3 is right there, and that's one of the pieces of media I'm going to work with. I've got my import, and I'm going to take that from here, after I put it in my folder, straight into here. And that way I can move on with it. So once you've got your stuff, the next step is basically assembling. And assembling basically means you're building a timeline. You're using all the media that you have to create your film, and all the choices you make will be recorded on that timeline, and that timeline is used to export out a final film, so it's a single video and not a blueprint with a bunch of pre-rendered practice preview visuals. There's a couple ways to do this. One way is to drag and drop directly from here straight to your timeline, and what it will do is it will create a sequence. So this little symbol right here that kind of looks like a pyramid I think of it as a pyramid, as a sequence. This symbol is basically saying that it contains media, and when you see this, it means it's just sound. This means it's video and sound. So you'll see that there's symbols on the bottom right of all clips. Not sure why this, because I used it. Okay, that's what that's telling me. And in that timeline, I have a cursor here that I could use to kind of scrub forward and see the shot. And within that timeline, it's fairly easy to take the edge and shorten the clip either way. And within that timeline, I can also right-click anywhere and do what's called a split. If I can't right-click, you can control-click, and it's a cut. So a cut cuts the whole thing, sorry. I was looking for split, and I didn't find it. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a different tool for this one. I was thinking of iMovie. It's this razor tool. It can let you cut these up into different chunks. Anytime you have a problem, like I cut this chunk and I go, wait a minute, I didn't want that. Go up to Edit, Undo. But that's one way that you can work with media, is to cut and chop it while it's on the timeline. And sometimes you have to do that. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool. However, another way to do that that I tend to like is if you double click a clip, it will end up in your source panel. And you've got another little scrub window. And in this, you can take the whole clip or just the video. So if you don't want the sound, you can cut that out, or just the sound and put that down. And notice too, these top tracks are video tracks, these bottom tracks are audio tracks. But one reason I think this is useful is it lets you preview the clip and play it and then decide where you want that start point to be. So if I want the start point to be here, I'll just mark in and you'll see a shaded area. And if I only want it to go this long, I'll say mark out. And so I'm pre-selecting instead of trying to chop things up here, because it gets really complicated when you have a lot of things. I'm just going to drop this in right like that. And generally, we're just keeping the settings as is. One thing to note is whatever video or source you put in, it formats the timeline to that resolution. So if you're using a camera from class, you want to make sure that a video from that, a 1080 video, is in the timeline first before you put anything else in it. Because if you start jumping back and forth, a 4K video is going to be different, and if you put an image in, it's going to be different than all of the other shots, and it tends to lock your project into whatever your first media clip is in. So just make sure that what it is the same for most of your shots. And then you end up zooming things in and out if you're trying to mix a 4K clip into a 1080 project, or zooming things in if you're trying to put a 1080 clip into a 4K project. Well, more on that later. Also, one thing about this that I want to point out is that if you want to, you can zoom in a lot on that, and I tend to like this. By using this, I'm zooming in more on the panel, and by doing this, I'm zooming in a little bit closer to the timeline. And then I always tend to do this, click on that bar, and what I want to see is show video keyframes. No, thumbnails, that's what it was. So the longer the clip is, you should be seeing moments throughout it. And even though these look the same, they're different. And the more you have, you'll just kind of get a sense of what's in there. And I can scrub through just like I did before. So as I'm assembling my video, I'm just putting these things onto into the sequence. So for example, this one, I don't really want the whole thing because all I want really is that jump, because a lot of it's just waiting. So I'm going to start right there at the jump. And once the grasshopper's out of frame and the grass stops moving, I'm going to go ahead and have that be my out point. And that's just making it more efficient because I don't have to cut it. I'm just putting that clip right where I need it to be. And you'll notice too, and this is a good example, this is 4K, this is not 4K. So what I have to do if there's a mismatch is I have to take that clip and then go over to the effect controls, make sure the clip is selected, hit effect controls, and then scale that up to about, looks like it's going to be 200%. And that way it's matching the 4K shot before it, and it doesn't look like a tiny little window. Important point. So basically you'll assemble all of these things, and then at the end you'll place your music down on the bottom. But I'm going to get more into that in the next video. So basically that's the next step. But choose what part of it you want, assemble it onto your timeline. One other thing I wanted to point out is this. So I'm going to take this shot right here, and I'm going to go ahead and take the whole thing and not bother clipping it. If you take a clip and you put it in between a clip, what it does is it overwrites it and deletes everything out of the way. So I'm going to go edit, undo to back that step up. If I'm holding that clip, you'll see actually a symbol right by the mouse cursor where it shows you what it's doing. And if you hit if you hit the command button, this is going to bump it. So the arrow shifted from I'm writing over it to I'm moving it to the side. So if I put this little dotted line right between these two clips, instead of deleting the clip that I'm overwriting, I'm bumping that clip once I let go to here. And you'll also notice too, it accidentally moved my song out, so I'm going to just delete all that, put it back in so that it's not broken like that. But it's an important part of the assembling process because you're trying to put all 10 shots on your timeline. And like I said, the next video will be more about how it all comes together.